Welcome to Achy Breaky Park, the podcast about theme parks hosted by two guys who live nowhere near their favorite theme parks. I'm Eric.
And I'm Noah. And today we're talking about a special I watched as a kid. And it's a relatively old special, but they still played it on TV a lot when I was growing up. They played it on the Food Network. It was from a show I watched a lot regardless. And that show is Unwrapped. And we're talking about Unwrapped Disney Delights.
So this was a half-hour special that aired on July 5th, 2010. That happens to be my birthday. And it is season 22 and episode 5 of Unwrapped, which, as Noah mentioned, is a show that he watched a lot as a kid, but something that was entirely new for me for this episode. So do you want to tell me a little bit about your experiences with Unwrapped?
It was mainly like how it's made, which is another show I really liked as a kid, but it was for specifically candy and like treats. And usually with things that are more like factory based. So it'll be how they make gum or how they make like gummy worms. But they were like very specific brands a lot of the time, and they were like brands that people knew. And this is kind of different because a lot of the time they didn't go into actual restaurants or talk about actual food. It was all like the factory based stuff. So that was interesting that they would talk about like the Disney stuff here, and that would be a deviation for them because it's totally different than anything else they would have done on the show.
We do get a little bit of the factory going on in here. We'll get to that later, but really, you're right. Like the majority of the focus here is just going into the kitchens of Disney restaurants on both the West and East Coast, so Disneyland and Walt Disney World, and kind of, like you said, it's like very how it's made. You get a lot of like FaceTime with the cast members who are working in these back of house positions, and kind of explaining like the tips and secrets of their trade, whatever goes on behind the scenes of these food delights. And like you said, it's very treat focused. That was something I was going to point out. I wasn't sure if that was a Disney thing, just because that's what the parks do, or if it's a general thing for Unwrapped. But yeah, lots of desserts, lots of candy.
Yeah, Unwrapped was always about like candies and sweets. And I will say, I was watching the cooking channel like a few weeks ago, and I saw a show called Unwrapped 2.0 was on, and I watched 2 episodes of it, and I was like, this feels weird, because like, at least the 2 episodes I watched, like, I didn't know any of the brands there. It was some random popsicle company that I feel they would only sell at those specific novelty stores that sell the really weird candy, like, they would sell the Chumley soda type thing, but at least for like the original Unwrapped, I would know at least half of the candies in that show. But now the new one, I don't know, it just doesn't hit different. Maybe these companies are hiding some darker secrets now that they don't want us to know about. Wasn't 2010 when they would just tell us all their secrets.
Yeah, I was curious about Unwrapped. Like I said, like being an Unwrapped virgin, I felt like I had to do a little bit of research just to figure out what the show is. And something I came across on the Wikipedia page, so once again, take this with a grain of salt. But apparently these are all sponsored episodes. So it's a deal with the companies that produce these foods to come on the show and kind of volunteer how it's made. So I guess maybe now they're just not getting as many willing participants who are willing to show off their processes.
I didn't know that, but that's genius, because this show just makes double profit, because it's all product placement at that point. So whether the episode does well or not, they're already making money from the advertisement spots.
It feels like an advertisement, and I'm not saying that in a cynical way. Like, I feel like my last comment may have came across a little dark, or like that I'm trying to expose the show, but that's not the case at all. I actually really like the tone of the special. What I was actually going to say is it kind of reminded me a lot of like the in-room resort TV that you would see at Disney World or at in Las Vegas or something like that. Like it felt like a must-do Disney, like just the tone of the special, how the narrator was talking.
And that's sort of how all of the Unwrapped episodes were. They sort of all feel like this same vibe of must-do Disney type thing, where it's always upbeat and they're always talking in this sort of tone where it does feel like they're promoting this product, where they're like, Jolly Ranchers? Like, what would the world be like without Jolly Ranchers? It was always sort of that type of vibe.
It's not just Unwrapped. It's like, I did watch a lot of Food Network, like specifically a lot of like Triple D and some of the competition shows, but a lot of Triple D, and that has a very similar tone as well. Like there's the specific cadence that Guy Fieri like speaks with that just feels like he could be right at home on Must Do Disney.
I think so. I don't know if this is 100% true, but I think with diners, drive-ins, and dives, those restaurants also have to pay to be on the show.
Really?
I'm not. I don't know if they have to pay to be on the show, but there's a lot of things they have to do to prepare for like their arrival. And I think a lot of it was like renovating their restaurants to make them look nicer for the show.
Really?
And I might be talking out of my ass here, and because I remember reading an article where how a lot of restaurants, they can't afford to be on diners, drive-ins, and dives because the show demands too much of them to prepare for the arrival. So I don't know if they need to necessarily pay to be on the show, but they do need to pay a lot of money in order to make the restaurant look show ready.
It might even just be the reality of like they have to shut down a certain part of their restaurant a certain number of days to do the filming. That's like a barrier to entry. But that's super interesting for you to bring up, because like we've eaten at a few of like restaurants that have been featured on Diners, Drive-ins, and Dives, like notably like the Lakeview, yeah, the Lakeview in Toronto, who's very like forthright about it. Like almost every restaurant that I've been in that has been featured on Food Network is like puts that kind of front and center as soon as you walk in. So it's interesting to know that that's kind of like a deal like between them, whether that's like Food Network approaches them first and says like, this is the price you got to pay, pony up, and then we'll get featured, or if it's like a pay to win kind of thing. I don't know the inner workings of this, but this is a mind-blowing piece of info for me.
But I remember even looking on online. This was years ago though. This was years ago when I was little and I was like really into Food Network. I remember looking on the Food Network website at the list of diners, drive-ins, and dives locations, and so many of them shut down. Like so many of them go out of business, and and that might have to do with like how much money they have to pay to be on the show, and then it not being worth the investment, because restaurants go to business all the time.
Yeah, I was going to say like that might just be like the restaurant industry is like that, but who's to say?
Yeah. Yeah, and even I was talking, like, whenever I watch these shows with my mom, she's always like, oh, do they ever dislike the food? Like, they're always saying, oh, the food is so amazing. I'm like, they're not going to say these restaurants are bad. Like, they're, even if, like, I love Lakeview. Lakeview it's one of my, like, go-to places in Toronto that I take people. But I wouldn't say it's a life-changing experience to go there.
No.
You go there for the vibe, but it's really good diner food.
Exactly. Well, it's just, this is what the show is. Like, you got, like, what's that, like, Kitchen Nightmares, Bar Rescue, for, like, those are for the bad restaurants. Like, of course, like, this show is kind of, like, highlighting the good. Like, that's just what it does.
I never watched full episodes of Bar Rescue, but they come up on my Facebook a lot, and I love watching the clips where, I forget his name.
John Taffer?
John Taffer, where he just, like, sends in plants, and then he always gets so angry, and then he just busts open the door and starts yelling at everybody. Like, I don't know. I like that better than, like, the Gordon Ramsay approach, where, like, they call him in, because here they frame it like he discovered this shitty bar, and then he's gonna come in and force them on the show, which is obviously not what's happening, but that's how they frame it.
This is probably why we like Nathan For You so much. It's just riffing on these.
It's that same structure, but I don't even the same thing with like all those shows. It's like Gordon Ramsay. And did you watch Restaurant Impossible?
No.
As a kid, that was one that took place in Toronto, so all the restaurants were Toronto based. But I will say that a few of the restaurants my family actually goes to, like Bagel, Bagel World?
Yeah.
You know Bagel World?
We've been to Bagel World.
That was on Restaurant Makeover, and they did keep some of the stuff. But I remember there was another kosher restaurant I go to, and I will say they did not take any of the cooking advice that was on that show. Most of these restaurants, same with Kitchen Nightmares, just revert back to what they were doing before with whatever shitty menu they have.
I'm sure it's very similar to what you said about diners, drive-ins, and dives, that like it's just very expensive to keep up. Like the things that they suggest, I'm sure a lot of restaurants can't actually afford it, and kind of like once the cameras are turned off have to be like, yeah, no thanks, but no thanks. Like
with Kitchen Nightmares, they honestly probably just come on the show for the free makeover, for the free renovation.
I'm sure.
And then Restaurant Impossible had this structure where the restaurant. I think it was a smaller production. It was, it was Toronto based. It was on, I forget, like global, but like they had to pay $10,000 of their own money, and the show matches $10,000.
Yeah. But even so, like, even if the show's putting more forward money, I'm sure there's like upkeep money that's like not part of the equation. Like if you're like renting like an oven or something like that, then like that's gonna come up every month. Anyway, we're going on a huge tangent here.
We're talking about food shows. This is it's all related.
It is.
It's all our food. I loved Food Network as a kid, but I will say I did miss Unwrapped, and of course, when I saw this episode come on, I was like, "Holy shit!" This was before I was on YouTube. I was seeing this, and I'm like, "What?"
I had to have seen this at some point. Because like 2010, like that's like right around the time when I was getting really hardcore into the parks. And for this to air on my birthday too, like that's like, there's no way that I wasn't spending that night, like sat down in front of the TV watching this on repeat. Like this would have been mind blowing to me. I'm surprised that I've never seen it. I was also really interested to see that Mark Summers was the host, who
yeah.
I had no idea that he did this because he's best known for Nickelodeon's Double Dare, which I of course have never seen this show either, but I just kind of dove into that world recently from watching the new Nickelodeon documentary that's on Hulu, The Orange Years.
See, when I heard about that whole Mark Summers Nickelodeon history, I was like, oh, Mark Summers from Unwrapped? And in my head, because I never knew about that whole Nickelodeon stuff until past few years.
Exactly.
And in my head, I always thought of him as a chef, as like a Food Network guy. I always thought he was like a food TV guy. I thought he was a chef in my mind. And he even, and that just got reiterated in my brain because he also was a judge on, I think he was on Guy's Grocery Games a few times. So even then I was like, Mark Summers is a chef? Yeah, so he's, I always thought of him as a food guy because he was on other shows also who made guest appearances.
He's a multifaceted guy.
But he's such a good host. He's such a good host in this.
He's a great host, just like his hosting performance. But I also have to say it's A+ casting, sorry, just on the basis that he looks like a total tourist dad in this. Like he looks like he fits right in with all the dads at Disney World.
Yeah.
His outfits are very on point with like the early 2010s dad at Disney World aesthetic that I came to be very familiar with at that time.
And it's not even exclusive to this, but all the jokes are very much like those typical dad must-do Disney jokes, which is a thing he does through the entire episode, the entire series.
There's a lot of dad humor in this. I don't want to skip ahead too much, but when we talk about the Mickey Bar Factory scene, the guy there I fell in love with.
Yeah, we'll get to that, but I think you want to go with the first segment where they go to Disneyland and look at their baked treats.
Yeah, the Disneyland Central Bakery.
Before we get into this, I have a big gripe with whoever edited this episode.
Okay.
Did you notice a mistake in the sequence where they were showing Disneyland?
What did they cut between Disneyland and Disney World? Was it one of those?
When they showed Splash Mountain while talking about Disneyland, they showed the side-by-side seating logs where it's two people to a row. And I was like, that is not Disneyland. Excuse me? That is Disney World.
I thought they would do something like that. My thought when I saw that, the Splash Mountain log coming down, is just how much I've seen that one clip of Splash Mountain log before. It feels like Disney has used that clip and sent that the same like promo package to every single vendor that they work with, every single video company. Because I've seen that shot so many times. Same with the shot of Sleeping Beauty Castle and the one looking down Main Street toward the train station. And we get like the sequence of all three of those right off the bat. So I think that's probably what put me right in that must-do Disney attitude, was just seeing those classic shots all together.
Yeah. And, I'm not going to get too mad because whoever was editing this probably they were just like, here's some clips of the parks, just throw them together. And then someone's like, oh, it's Disneyland? It's probably same ride.
It's all very disorienting because Mark Summers is hosting from Disney World, and it's constantly cutting back between him and Disneyland, so...
Yeah, I could see someone who doesn't know any better being confused by, like, the Club 33 thing that comes later. I mean, like, oh, that's in Disney World? But, or thinking Disney World and Disneyland are the same place and, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But anyways, Disneyland Central Bakery?
Does this place still exist? From what I've heard is like Disney World at least used to have like a similar central bakery, and I don't think that's a thing anymore. I don't know if you know anything more about Disneyland.
Uh, just by I don't know for sure, but I'd imagine that Disneyland does have this central bakery just because of how small Disneyland's much smaller.
That makes sense.
So they could just drive stuff from one end of the park to the other. Like when I worked there, I would walk mainly the entire length of property to get to my location. So it's not bad. Well, you can walk from one end of Disneyland to the other in 20 minutes.
Exactly. Like one end of California Adventure to the other end of Disneyland is not that far.
Yeah, but I think just in general, Disneyland has more fresh baked treats than Disney World does. I feel a lot of Disney World is made more factory style, whereas Disneyland is made more. And I have nothing to base this on. I just think it just seems that way, that Disneyland has more stuff that's made fresh in house.
That's definitely something that they're highlighting a lot in this particular segment is like, especially with the Mickey cookies, they're always emphasizing handmade, handmade, handmade. Like they want you to know that like these are made with heart, that these aren't just churned out in a factory somewhere.
And if you watch the One Day at Disney, they have the whole candy maker segment, which is literally them making all the candy. And I know the big thing at Disneyland is during Christmas is the giant candy canes, which they make in-house. And I feel in Disney World, that would be something that would more come in a box.
Possibly, yeah.
That they outsource to some company.
I've seen at the confectionery on Main Street at Disney World, I've seen people working in there sometimes making the cotton candy or something like that. But you're right that you do see a little bit more of that at Disneyland.
Where it's like the boxes with the Walt Disney World on it, and it just has like the generic Mickey picture on it, where it's sort of like shortbread cookies, and it's just like the shortbread cookies you get at the grocery store.
Oh yeah. I don't think I've seen anyone buy those. I've certainly never seen anyone buy one of these Mickey cookies that they talk so much about in this particular segment.
I think that's the 2010 thing.
It could have been.
Yeah.
I know. I wanted to say with the 2010 thing, like Mark Summers runs through the list of like how many of each particular treat Disney sells in a year, and it's only 150,000 cupcakes, which seems very low considering that nowadays Disney makes a special event cupcake for like every single like anniversary or like day of the week. Like,
yeah. And I think another thing with like, at least I noticed this. I haven't been to Disney World enough. Like I maybe just didn't notice it when I was in Disney World. But I feel like in Disneyland there's a lot more of those sort of bakery style cases where you go up and you pick what you want versus it just being out in a gift shop. I feel like Disneyland has more of that bakery style where those things are the things that they make fresh. Whereas Disney World, it's sort of, there's a cupcake at a specific quick service that also sells normal lunch food.
Yeah.
It's sort of more focused in Disneyland, where this place, you go here for treats, you go here for this. Like, I don't remember Bengal barbecue having desserts, really.
No. I have a specific image of my mind at Disney World, like in Hollywood Studios, the Starbucks there, of like those clamshell cases with like the cupcakes or the carrot cake cookies that like were obviously coming in from some other bakery somewhere off-site. So like I can kind of picture what you mean. Like there's less of a feeling of immediacy that like these are coming directly from the factory or from the central bakery or whatever.
Like in Disney World, the only two that really come to mind are Big Top Treats and the confectionery for places that you would go and get treats.
There's one in Frontierland as well. One of the shops has a counter, but it's not as much as the confectionery or Big Top Treats because they don't have like the kitchen on stage.
But I know that's another thing that Disneyland, I've seen in other specials that we'll probably get to later, but I know Disneyland that's one of the things they pride themselves on is all their fresh, is how fresh their baked goods are. And it's a lot easier to do because Disneyland has less locations and it's less of a logistics beast than Walt Disney World to get these baked goods around. Like they can have one massive kitchen where they make everything and just golf cart it to somewhere.
Exactly. The only other thing I wanted to highlight from this segment was just the Tim Burton Alice in Wonderland cake.
I wrote in my notes, Mad Hatter cake looked like shit.
I know, it looks
like
so bad. I hate that movie with a passion, and like it really emphasizes the 2010-ness of it all, as we were talking about.
I always hated those like printed candy pictures because they never look good.
Yeah.
Especially, it just looks like a low res picture they printed out, and I don't think they do this much anymore. If they do it, it just prints on like a little piece of white chocolate, the decoration. But if that was my wedding cake, I would have been like, "Excuse me."
Yeah, I don't know if that was supposed to be a wedding cake, but whoever was the on the receiving end, if that was me, I would not be happy.
No, I wouldn't be happy either.
So do you want to talk about World Showcase next up on the list?
Yeah, I feel like World Showcase is the big topic that we'll lightly cover, but first maybe we'll cover what they talk about specifically in the show.
I learned something new.
What did you learn?
I had no idea that the back of house was all like people from that country as well. I assumed that that was mostly like Disney's own back of house staff, and then it was really just the guest facing roles that were the CRPs and the representatives from those countries.
I feel like I always thought that, but then something happened where I learned it was the other way around. But this reaffirmed me, and then I started thinking about it when they said that, and that's honestly probably a part of the Disney culinary programs.
That makes sense. Yeah. Can international like students participate in the culinary programs?
I'd imagine so if they're still
If they're doing this.
have them in the kitchen.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess I never considered it.
Well, when you think about the restaurant they highlight here, which is in the China Pavilion, all of those, that's a third-party operator. So you'd imagine that all those people, they do the same sort of recruitment process, that any of the third-party operators wouldn't have Americans working there.
Yeah, there must be some deal going on, because I didn't even think about that angle as well, as most of a good chunk of the restaurants at World Showcase are third-party operating participants. So
it might be different for somewhere like the Canada Pavilion, where it's a Disney restaurant and that whole pavilion is run by Disney, and then I think it still is. We're just sponsored by Tourism Canada.
Yeah, I know for a fact the Canada Pavilion, Le Cellier, also Beer Garden, which they also talk about in this special. Like those are definitely Disney restaurants.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it might depend on the pavilion.
Yeah. I gotta say, in the Beer Garden segment, that the raw apple strudel looking real unappetizing.
Oh.
You liked it?
I mean, I didn't think anything of it. I thought it just looked like a basic apple strudel. It didn't make me think it looked bad or good. What didn't you like about it?
I think it's just the raw dough, how they were stretching it super thin. The cast member talks about how you have to be able to read a newspaper through the dough.
But did you think it looked disgusting once it was baked?
No. I'm just talking about the raw. It just looks like skin.
Oh, but that's just phyllo. That's just like phyllo dough, same thing. It's just like if any pastry like that is stretched super thin.
Honestly, it kind of looks like uncircumcised dick. Like I didn't want to say it, but like that's the
note to make this episode explicit.
It looked fine cut into slices, obviously, but
I will say Beer Garden is a place that I regret not going to. I really want to hit it eventually because I love like sausages and sort of like German food like that. Like there's a restaurant in Toronto called Wurst where it's sort of that same vibe. It's sort of that same style of food, and I love that kind of, processed like meat.
Garbage.
Yeah, but it probably is better food. It's actual sausages are proper meat.
I adore sausages, honestly. Like that's gonna be a weird pull quote, but no, I absolutely love a good quality sausage, like you're talking about. Like Wurst, like Beer Garden, I could absolutely go for one of these. Like this, despite what I said earlier, this segment definitely sold me more on Beer Garden.
Yeah, I don't know about now, but I remember being relatively a good price for a all you can eat. And I did go to the quick service one time that's there where you could just get like one bratwurst. And it was really good. It was pretty good. Like I like sauerkraut and that kind of stuff.
Oh yeah, yeah, I have no problem with sauerkraut.
Now, this time when I go back, get myself a beer with that and make it even better.
Hell yeah. The Japanese sculpted candy though. That rules.
That was cool.
That's so cool. Yeah. I've never seen that before, but damn, I wish I did. Do they still do that?
They still do that. Yeah, I've seen it.
Oh, I've never seen that. Is it still the same cast member that they're talking about? Because they made it sound like it was just that one. Like, she comes over from Japan and this is her special skill.
I I'd imagine they change it up, but it might be the same thing where it's like that lady who works in the Polynesian who always makes
The lays.
the one
Yeah.
lady who makes the lays. But it might be. I'm not sure. I could imagine it's a third party operator, so they probably could play by their own rules. Yeah, that's super cool. I could never buy one of those. I would never be able to eat it.
I think someone actually says that. There's like a man on the street interview where they say, like, this is art, I can't eat this. And I'd feel the same way, but it's you're paying for the experience. You got to watch it being made, and I think that's cool.
Yeah. Honestly, if we're just talking general, Japan Pavilion, probably one of the best pavilions because
Oh, kicks ass. It rules.
it's one of those third party operators, and I feel like all the merchandise there is sort of. It's obviously like a very densely made version of stuff you would actually get in Japan, though. So specific, like they have all the pop culture stuff, which is super cool, and they have like the cultural stuff, which is probably not super big there, but it's sort of like the historic cultural stuff, and then the food area is amazing. I remember we when we went there, we all shared the mochi ice cream. We all got a box and we shared it. I remember that because I get mochis here now, and those are great.
Yeah, no, I love mochi. I brought like a bottle of sake for my roommate. It's really good stuff in that shop. I think it's because it's actually like that Japanese department store chain, and this is their only location definitely outside of Asia, possibly the only one outside of Japan. It definitely, just in terms of scale and scope, like that's a store that you could get lost in, and I certainly do every single time I walk in there.
Yeah, and a lot of the pop culture stuff is things that you can get other places, but I don't know, something about that just feels super cool to get the Pokemon stuff, and now they have Animal Crossing stuff. They have that Kawaii exhibit where they have the little Tom Nook inside there. That's pretty cool. That's been there forever, but
I'd love to see them swap out the exhibit just because keep things fresh, but no, I agree. It's amazing. And like, we're not even like anime fans.
no.
There's a kid in this who has like very aggressive bald eagle face paint. And he ends it by doing like a very stereotypical Japanese bow. And I just wanted to point out that kid definitely grew up to storm the Capitol.
I don't remember that, but the kid that stuck out to me was the one kid who he sounded like he was wearing like a Texas hat, and he was like, "It's so amazing! Like, who knew you go to all these places in Orlando, Florida? Like, I could go from this country to this country, all within Orlando." It sounds like someone, the producer was like, "Here's your line, say this," because it sounds so written.
The Orlando, Florida, like specifically like Orlando, Florida, makes it very scripted.
It's like whenever they say the Walt Disney World Resort in Orlando, Florida.
Yeah, totally.
I guess it might be better now, but at least the China Pavilion, I remember their food being the most, not the one that most people go to, because it's one of those things where it's like, I mean, Chinese food is so prevalent around the world that you could probably get the better version of it for much cheaper.
Yeah, especially this quick service is very much just kind of Panda Express tier.
Yeah, I had it once, and I know I was talking to someone and they love it, but I'm like, it's like, it's kind of basic. It's your dumpling. It's like your.
Yeah, I've eaten at Nine Dragons, like the sit down restaurant there too, and it was nothing to write home about. Like,
yeah, I'd imagine that's a little better, but.
Mickey Bar Factory.
Mickey Bar Factory.
I think this is the highlight. This is the climax of the special for me.
So there are 2 Unwrapped Disney specials, and I feel like the Mickey Bar special is the segment that made me say, okay, we gotta do this one first, because Mickey Bars are probably one of the most iconic treats you can get at Disney, and it's a good entryway into talking about other treats in future episodes.
Yeah, because we didn't talk about this at the top, but this is our first Disney food episode, so we'd be remiss if we didn't mention Mickey Bars.
And Eric has a special connection towards Mickey Bars that make them very near and dear to his heart.
I do. I worked for a summer in outdoor vending at Magic Kingdom selling Mickey Bars, so there was a lot of things in here that I had a little bit of inside knowledge about going into.
And I wrote notes based on the inside knowledge that you gave me. But I think before we get into the Mickey Bar special, we should say, are you a Mickey Bar man or a Mickey ice cream sandwich man?
Sandwich all the way. There's no questioning at all.
Okay, so here's the thing. I have always identified myself as a sandwich man. But when I think about it, I think I enjoy the bar more. But I just in general, I like ice cream sandwiches better. So I've always thought, oh, Mickey ice cream sandwiches is the better one. But something about the bar. I don't know. I think it's just
Well, if you want to talk about iconicness, like it's all on the bar.
it just hits different.
It totally hits different. I think the sandwich, the big sell for me is honestly just that it stays together a lot easier when you're eating it.
Yeah, it's more frozen.
Plus, you get like the cookies and cream ice cream, so there's a little bit of variety in there versus your traditional vanilla. I think they both have their pros and cons, pluses and minuses.
Yeah, I would occasionally get like one of those frozen lemonades, but
I can pass on those, yeah.
But I've never had like the frozen bananas, just because I hate bananas. But that's we're gonna go frozen banana. I've never had the Olaf bar.
Yeah, the frozen fruit bars are really like, what are you doing, man? Like these are just subpar popsicles. Like, go to 7-Eleven or something. Like, you can do better.
I will say the frozen lemonade is like super refreshing on those like really hot days, because ice cream can bog you down sometimes, and the frozen lemonades do feel like you're just drinking a lemonade, and it's sort of that it's refreshing and it really cools you down.
Ice cream always kind of like weirdly dehydrates me. Like, I always feel like I need to drink like water or even like milk after ice cream just to really like drive home that liquidness of it all. But I don't get that with the frozen lemonades, for sure.
Yeah. I was never like that, but in these past few years, I've started to need water with my ice cream. Because I always think of ice cream as like a liquid. You know what I mean? In my brain, ice cream, it is a solid. But to me, when I'm eating ice cream, it's more, when you're eating it, it's more reminiscent of a liquid.
Yeah.
Because of the way it melts.
But it's also not a drink either. Like, there's nothing I love more than like a burger and a shake. Like, amazing combo. But when I order a shake at a restaurant, like, I need to get a water on the side, because that's not going to be my drink. It doesn't work that way.
Yeah, no, you need water also. But going to this factory, something that just like right off the bat blows my mind is that there's an entire factory making ice cream bars just for Disney parks. And I'd imagine this factory's operating every single day. And when you think about factories, they probably have even one distribution center for chips or any other type of ice cream goes to such a large amount of grocery stores. But Disney is selling enough of these ice cream bars in their individual parks to justify an entire factory line operation to sell them.
Until recently, I guess. Now they started doing those the frozen bars in the freezer section in grocery stores.
I don't think those aren't the same as these ones, though. Those ones are smaller. That was a big gripe people had. They're small. They're not the same ones, and those ones are they're different. They're totally different. People said the chocolate on them is thinner. Like they don't hit as the same as the in park ones.
Interesting. I haven't heard this. Yeah, no, I wasn't sure if this was like a portion of a factory, but even just having like a dedicated factory line is impressive. Like, it's mind-boggling how many of these they're putting out per day. I mean, definitely like how many of these we sold per day in ODV was amazing. So
I'd imagine it's your best seller. I'd guess it's at least like 75% of what you sell.
I don't know if it's that high, but definitely very close. We had like certain like quantities of each type of ice cream that we had to keep on hand at the wagon at all times. And like the Mickey bars and the Mickey sandwiches were always the most. Like, we're talking like you had to have like, I think it was 2 boxes of the fruit bars, but then 4 boxes each of the Mickey bars and the Mickey sandwiches. So quite a bit more. Those were always the first to go, the first to sell out.
And Mickey bars are a weird thing, because there are better treats to get at Disney, and especially better frozen treats. But you just sort of have to get one. Because I could go and get a Haagen-Dazs bar, which is arguably a better ice cream chocolate on a stick experience. But something about when you go to Disney, you have to get a Mickey bar. You know what I mean? At least once a trip.
I was surprised to learn that they had only been introduced in the 80s. This was something that was talked about in the special. I assume this was like, if not like day one Disneyland, like pretty soon thereafter. So
I would imagine like the 50s and 60s, they wouldn't have the technology to shape them into the shape of Mickey. Well, I guess they were already shaping ice cream bars. It's just a mold.
It's like a cookie cutter. That's all it is. Yeah. Because I worked at Dairy Queen before I did ODV, and like we had the dilly bars, which is effectively the same thing. And it's just like a little like a mold kind of thing, like a almost like a cookie cutter that you just fill up with ice cream. So
So what you're saying is this is an Eisner invention, most likely.
possibly,
Oh no, Eisner. No, Eisner would have been late 80s.
yeah, more 90s. I don't know. Is this a Miller?
This does seem like a Miller idea, actually. And this sort of also does. Why do you have something to say about it being a Miller
No,
idea?
no. Go on.
Okay. I was just gonna say, it also sort of speaks to how closely Disney ties itself to its sponsors. Because notably, is it Briars on Disney World and Dryers?
Dryers and Edie's are the two. I don't know which one is which. It's the same company, but just different names on different coasts.
So it sort of speaks to how closely Disney ties itself to its distributors and business partners, where they are probably giving Nestle so much money to make these bars. I don't know how that partnership would work if Disney just buys the bars, or how that works. It's such a specific factory line they need. You'd imagine that would be expensive, but also Nestle gets the advertising from being in the park, so
it's got to be pennies on the dollar either way to make these. So
yeah, and they're obviously making a hefty profit on them with $5.75 now.
yeah, something like that. It was $5 when I was there, but I know it's gone up. I love the guy in the Mickey Bar segment. I know I talked about this earlier, but his enthusiasm is rivaled only by Mark Summers himself.
But that's every guy on Unwrapped. That's every person that runs the factories on Unwrapped. I do want to say two things. One, about Mickey bars. I don't like how they're dictating how people should eat their Mickey bars. Why are you telling me I gotta eat the ears first? It's obviously the most logical way, but I don't want to be told how to eat my frozen desserts. Second of all, they said that it's only Disney World, Disneyland, and Disney Cruise Line that have Mickey bars. So I was thinking, like, wait, so Tokyo doesn't, Hong Kong, Shanghai, is that just like a logistics thing of the factories only there? Do they have their own Mickey bars? Like, how does that work?
I don't remember. I've only ever been to Paris outside of the States, and I seem to remember Mickey bars, but I can't say for sure. I think they have Mickey bars. I don't know. This might just be like,
Yeah, it might just be a different company that makes them.
yeah, or it could just be like for the special. They don't want to list everything, so make it easy.
They could have just said Disney parks around the world.
Yeah,
but
I don't know. I don't know how it works.
Anyways, character dining.
Akershus looks not great. I haven't seen the inside of the restaurant before, and I was a little let down by this, the way it's shown here.
I have a theory here. So Arcasius, I don't know how to pronounce it, gets a lot of slack for being like one of those worst character dinings, and I feel a lot of people don't know about it, and I feel it's also because I feel like that's one of the restaurants where they're trying to make it authentic, and Americans might not be down for the Norwegian fare. And I feel like that's why they put princesses in here, to make you want to go. But it's strange to me that this is the character dining they highlight for princesses, especially when they could have done Cinderella's royal table. So my theory is this was a way to advertise Arcasius, to get people to think this is where you see the princesses, to offset some of the people going to Cinderella's royal table and get them to come to here.
Isn't Akershus like popular though? I know, especially now that it's more Frozen focused, but I thought people were going there left, right, and center.
I think that's more because of the princesses, but what I've heard from the Diz Unplugged is that the food there's not too good. But then again, I take everything from the Diz Unplugged now with a grain of salt, because I have had some disagreements now that I've been actually be able to try the food they review. But they say their whole thing is always like, the food's crap because the people will come here anyways because of the characters. But I feel like that's the same deal here, where they put characters in there just so people will go. And I'm not saying that the food there is bad, because I've never had it before, but they say it's a lot of that, like fermented fish type things, where they're trying to make it authentic, but Americans might not be down for it. And I will say, because I said that statement earlier, that I've never had a meal I would consider bad on Disney property. I've never had any food where it's so bad where I'm like, I am mad I paid for this.
I'm like positive I've definitely had at least one. Definitely in like around this time, I'd say like 2010 is probably when Disney food started to actually be good. Because like there was a long time that it was kind of garbage.
Yeah, I guess most of my memories are coming from because when I went to Disney, I didn't eat a lot when I was there on my vacation because I was like, I was just like, I feel like I was like ride. I'm not like I don't care about food, but on my program I never had any food I would consider bad. I've had food that was like basic where I'm like, oh, it's a little overpriced, but I'm at Disney, so who cares? And when it was overpriced, it was character dining, so I'm like, I don't care because Winnie the Pooh just came to my table and gave me a hug. You know what I mean? So I didn't care, but I do believe that they make the food more expensive because characters are there, but you would expect that because you are also getting entertainment with your food. I don't think Disney's making the food purposefully bad because they can lean on the entertainment. And I feel like a lot of the character dining, they know families are going to go there, so they purposefully make it your sort of more generic Disney fare.
Yeah, definitely more palatable. We were talking a little bit before the record about like Disney character breakfast in particular, how it's like almost always the same lineup of like Mickey waffles and your typical items there.
You could go to Trails End, which is not character dining, and get the same food for a fraction of the price, but you don't get Mickey coming to your table in a chef hat. So it's when you go to these character dinings, you're not paying for the food, you're paying for the character dining, for the fact that you don't have to wait in a line to meet Mickey Mouse and all these different characters because they'll just come to your table and you can get a picture with them.
I think this is the reason why I don't have a ton of character dining experience. And it's hard for me to point out what my favorite character dining spot is. It all kind of blends together for me.
On our program, I don't think I purposefully seeked out character dining. I did Trattoria because our friend invited us to that, and that was really good. The food there, amazing. I love Trattoria. It's all the same price, so you pick what you want. So I was like, there's steak on the menu for breakfast. I'm gonna get that, and it was actually really good. And I was like so full at the end. And you could have ordered more food, and they always give you like the little pastries. Good character breakfast. The other one I did was Crystal Palace, and me and our friend Megan, she was like, "Do you want to go to Crystal Palace today?" I'm like, "We don't have a reservation." And she was like, "Oh, I'll like check the app," and there was no reservations there. And she's like, "We'll just go up and see." And we went up, and I'm like, "There's no way we're getting in here. Like, there's no way. This is Crystal Palace in the summer. Like, are you crazy? People book this weeks in advance." They were like, "Oh, the wait's 15 minutes. Are you okay with that?" And I'm like, "What do you mean? Are we okay with 15 minutes?" And then we were like, "Of course." And it literally wasn't even 15 minutes. It was maybe like 2 minutes. And we went in there. And that was amazing. And I love Crystal Palace just because of the food is once again that very basic Disney food, but the building is amazing. And also I love those Winnie the Pooh characters. And major big cast compliment to Winnie the Pooh, Tigger, Piglet, because all those characters in there were so good. They were amazing. The Tigger that came, I'm going on a real big tangent here because I love Crystal Palace, but the Tigger in there was literally bouncing the whole time up and down.
It's amazing. I will say Crystal Palace has that French toast bread pudding, and that alone is worth the price of admission.
And I always love, because now they're doing it at more places, but they always bring you that tray of pastries, and those pastries are so good.
Oh, of course, yeah. Love those pastries. So the last two segments in this special, we have Goofy's Candy Co. and we have Club 33. So do you have any thoughts on these?
Goofy's Candy Company is kind of, I don't know, that's just sort of, I don't think of Goofy's Candy Company as the place as much as I do think of it as the candy you get in the park. Just the normal generic, gobstoppers. And I did think it was cool you could have your birthday there. I was wondering how much something like that would cost.
The birthday segment, that's like the only thing we're talking about here. I have a picture of one of the kids at the birthdays, and I think that's really what I wanted to talk about is this kid in his light up sunglasses just exuding.
Okay, I know exactly what you're talking about. It's probably the birthday boy.
They all had them, so I don't know, but yeah, they're all decked out in like these light up sunglasses, these little cast member name tags. Incredible. Like it's very Chuck E. Cheese, the whole tone of these birthday parties. I've never seen one happen in real life. I don't know who takes their kid to downtown Disney for a birthday party, but
I don't know, it's probably a good way to say you're having your birthday party at Disney World without having to pay for all your friends to get into Disney World.
Yeah, like it's obviously like I guess only locals would do something like this, but if you're a local, and I assume like you're a pass holder and most of your friends are, like just go to the parks, I would think. Maybe not with 12 of your friends, but
Yeah, it's pretty, I don't know. It's pretty cool. I remember the only time I went into Goofy's Candy Company was when they were doing the cast member appreciation days and we got that free drink. And that was the day I wore my very poor choice of my orange bird outfit. And I thought it would be a funny idea. And I was like, yeah, the whole time I was like, this is going to be hilarious. And then I got to the park and I'm like, oh no, I really messed up.
it was so funny seeing your spirits die that day.
It just because mainly I had this orange bird shirt that I got at the beginning of the program. That it's a nice shirt. I still wear it. It's just sort of an all over print where it's just an orange bird pattern. And then I was in the park, and I was like, "Whoa!" I saw shorts with the exact same pattern on them. So I have never worn these shorts again because they're not like I got them as a joke to wear with the shirt. And I remember I put them on and I came out of my room and it was like, it looks like you're wearing a male romper.
I thought it looked like pajamas. I think that's what I told you at the bus stop.
Yeah, it's like the shirt itself doesn't look like pajamas, but when you pair them with the pants that have the same pattern on them, it does. So I took a picture in the park and you could see someone in the background visually mainly pointing and laughing at me. But, you know, that was a good day. Overall, I feel that provided some funny memories and some very funny photos that I still cherish. That was also the day we went to homecoming, which is a good day. And it was also the only day, to loop this back around, that we went to Goofy's Candy Company because it was cast member appreciation days and we were able to get a free slushie.
I just love how like embarrassed you still are now about that.
Okay. I don't think my problem was the combination of the outfit, but just sort of how it just made me look like super overweight just because of how the pattern laid out. And I'm like not a big guy, but it just made me look like I was like overweight. So I'm like, oh, this is not a good look.
You're fine.
And then he just got super self-conscious.
Oh my god, no.
No, I'm fine now. It's funny.
Okay. I didn't mean to trod on sensitive territory.
No, I'm fine about it now. It was literally just when I was on the bus. I was like, this might have been a poor choice, but the whole time in the park I was vibing. I've never worn those shorts again though because they're just not good. They just don't look good.
So the last thing they talk about here is Club 33, and I don't want to dive too much into it because I feel like Club 33 is definitely like episode territory, especially if we ever get to go. But just in general, I think there's a lot of lore there that we'll want to uncover at some point.
I think the one thing I'll point out is Mark Summers was flexing his Club 33 visit where he's like, I was there after, and then they talk about how exclusive it was.
This whole segment felt very flexy, and I think that's another reason why I'm shying away. Like that, the host that they speak to for most of it, like his cadence, his manner of speaking felt so judgmental. Like he was very much like, you know, there's a waiting list and it's 7 to 10 years long, so make of that what you will. Like he just really made it sound like he didn't want you being in here. Like I didn't feel welcome at all in this segment. I'm sorry.
And anytime they start talking about like the art that's in there, Walt Disney handpicked and hand commissioned this piece of art for this specific area instead of focusing on the wacky animatronics that are in there, which they do talk about, but
it was very much like a side note. Like this wackiness did not come to pass. This is all about the fancy steaks and the art replicas from Florence.
You could come here and get a custom meal made for you. Most of the meals at Club 33 are made on the spot.
Yeah, made exclusive for our members by their tastes, their likes and dislikes. And you see like the super rich dude with his family talking about like this is the only place to eat in Disneyland. Like no other places need to fly.
What do you mean? You're eating at Blue Bayou? I would never eat there.
I didn't like that guy.
You had a turkey leg? Oh, I would never. He's missing out on the truly best place to eat at Disneyland, which is a Little Red Wagon. You getting a corn dog?
That was missing from this special, I'll say that.
Yeah. Disneyland corn dogs are truly something magical. There's so much they could have put in this. When I think about Disney food, honestly, my tops are probably corn dog, Disneyland fried chicken, and anything in Jolly Holiday. And mint juleps and corn dogs are my top Disneyland treats.
Mint juleps are stellar. They're so good.
I don't like, typically I don't like mint unless it is like just in a mint, but I love mint juleps so much. Mint juleps and corn dogs, I probably got those at least once a week. I think I actually got a mint julep every day of my program. At least every day I was in Disneyland.
So do you have any final thoughts on Unwrapped Disney Delights?
No, but we're gonna probably be doing Unwrapped at Walt Disney World.
Absolutely.
Where they talk about other iconic things.
Absolutely.
I will say Unwrapped at Walt Disney World is probably the one I watched more than this one.
I'm looking forward to it then.
Stay tuned for that.
That's one I definitely have not seen at all, so can't wait.
Yeah, this was our first food episode. I remember I was talking to Eric, I'm like, I think we're going to do Satuli Canteen, but then I was like, it's too much research with that one. Satuli Canteen, we're going to do an entire Satuli Canteen episode, probably an entire Disneyland corn dog episode, so...
We're going to be talking about each and every one of these places. This is just like our intro. We're going to dive in from here. So in the meantime, thanks for coming along for the ride with us on Achy Breaky Park. Stay tuned for new episodes wherever you get your podcasts.
And be sure to follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Achy Breaky Park.
If you like the show, feel free to leave a 5-star review.
And don't forget, it was all started by two guys desperate to go back to their favorite theme parks.